Okay, and we're just gonna jump into the one of the last vulnerabilities as a part of our Christmas in July efforts, which is RCE and the ETQ Reliance. This was a vulnerability that was found by Adam and myself, so quite excited to explain this in a bit more detail. Like all the other software, I wanted to give you a bit of context. What is ETQ Reliance? It is an enterprise quality management software. It's used by some pretty large industries, including aviation, electronics, and manufacturing. Its sole purpose is to track and document quality-related processes and procedures. It usually contains sensitive documents within the system because they're related to all sorts of internal processes and procedures that are sensitive in nature. And while there aren't a very large number of these instances on the internet, it's a really critical weak spot for an enterprise for having this product exposed, given the vulnerabilities that we discovered. ETQ Reliance has this concept of default users, and we were quite curious about these default users, the most important default user being the system user. Logging into this would pretty much allow us to exploit RCE pretty easily post-authentication, but how can we log into the system user? How does this work in general? We were quite curious about this. So we found that when we tried to log in as a system user, just by using the username system with any sort of password, it would quickly pop back with an error message saying that the user system is designed for internal use only. This is quite an interesting error message. We kept poking at this. At some point, we realized that we accidentally got logged in as the system user. How did this happen? We were pretty confused. Like we tried to retrace our steps and we were like, whoa, this is pretty crazy because this leads to RCE. How did this happen? And we found out that we actually were able to log into the system user by logging in with system with a space at the end. It's quite surprising that the space led us right through and authenticated us as the system user. But why does this really happen? And this is where the investigation really starts for this vulnerability. What we found was this request where we log in with the space responded with a valid session that we could then use to get command execution. And this was a happy accident. We didn't really understand how this worked at that stage. We just kind of got lucky. But as we started digging through the authentication flow, we started understanding how this worked. So one of the first functions that that the authentication flow would hit was resolve user. In this case, SES ID was our session ID, which is unauthenticated, token was null, and is SAML auth was false. We can see that if we do see that error message, where if we just tried to log in with system without a space, we would get that same error message that we got earlier, which is that the user is designated for internal use only. But if our username was system with the space, we don't actually hit this exception. We end up going further into the function flow. So why didn't we actually need a password? Well, it seems that further down in the flow of these functions, the system user doesn't actually need a password to authenticate. And this essentially allowed us to log in to the system user without a valid password. After we logged in as the system user, we were able to get RCE quite trivially. We were able to basically use Python to evaluate Python-like scripts for different processing pipelines. We took one of the existing scripts, we modified it, and we added our own subprocess.popen. And when we opened up that specific page that would process that script, it executed that command, which proved that our RCE vulnerability was valid. The remediation advice for this one is that you should upgrade to NXG release 2025 1.2, or the cloud users of ETQ are already protected with all of their rollout being successfully deployed. This will resolve all the security issues discovered by our team. There were quite a few more in ETQ Reliance that are detailed in our blog post, but we decided to focus on the most important one for this webinar.